This is YGTV and YG Roundtable built by Max Weiss. I'm your host, Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. Today I'm leading a discussion about risk for entrepreneurs. Welcome to YG Roundtable built by Max Weiss and sponsored by Health Payment Systems. YG Roundtable is a place to explore big ideas, challenge conventional thinking, and stay in touch with trends. For more content shaking up the business industry, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm bringing together subject matter experts to share their thoughts. Today, we're talking about risks for entrepreneurs. Let's meet the panel.
I'm Andy Weins, president of GreenUp Solutions, and I do the thing.
Hi, I'm Dan Marx, CEO of Reshift. We help companies fill in the missing gaps in their sales marketing process.
So today is kind of a time capsule. It's funny how this works. It's like the most 2020 show of all time. We had this brilliant episode all lined up, and then we started getting notifications in the last 72 hours that some of our panelists tested positive. So here we are having this great conversation on leadership, and Dan, you've been in from the beginning, so thanks for that. But it got to be 24 hours before airtime, and I had to pull in my young gun's brother, Andy Weins, to sit in. So Andy, thanks for coming on today.
Absolutely, that's the rule of 2020, I think we can call it now moving forward.
Yeah, we have to just the show must go on, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is the show business rule. But today is going to be great because you're perfectly qualified to talk about this particular subject. We're talking about entrepreneurialism and the journey that people go through. The journey of, I'm doing something that I enjoy. Maybe I'm doing it on the side. Boy, could I leave my cushy corporate job and make this a living? Or maybe I'm already doing it. How can I take it to the next level? So today we're going to talk about that path. And you two are great for this because you've both done it several times. So we're going to talk people through that journey today on a Young Guns Roundtable presented by Max Weiss. So let's start with one of my favorite phrases, and we're going to borrow from Stephen Covey. Let's begin with the ending in mind. Okay? So let's fast forward to someone started a business, they're living the entrepreneurial life. It sounds really sexy, but Dan, what is it really like when you're running your own thing every day?
It's not the jets and the fancy cars and living the life of champagne dreams. It's your everything.
Yeah?
That's what it is. It's different than a corporate gig.
Yeah.
You are the decision maker. You are the end all be all.
I think that surprises people that it's more than just whatever they do for a living.
Yeah, I think so. It's a shocker even if you think you're prepared for it. I mean, for me, for sure. I came from a corporate gig and all of a sudden I didn't have a graphic designer, a web person, a marketing person. And I was just like, oh, that was a simple email.
Yeah.
Not no more.
Yeah.
So.
There's struggle that goes into it. Like, in a corporate environment, there's someone who specializes in all the stuff that you have to do. When you start your own thing, you have to go back and become a beginner again in a lot of different areas.
For sure. Yeah. It's really getting back down to basics and just kind of allocating the steps and what's important first. Because you can get a little crazy sometimes.
And that's when things are up and running, right? Yeah. So we're picturing once it's good, you're still stumbling along and bumbling along. Is that what you have experienced in the companies you've started?
Oh, absolutely, and that's the secret we share. Met with a guy last week that I've looked up to for the last 5 years, and he said, I'm in my 20 year of business, and I feel like a startup again. Yeah. Because that's the nature of it. But he said this is the most exciting it's been, and he's talking about burning $100,000 in 60 days, 90 days on a new project, new initiative. He goes, it's exciting again. For that very reason, that, okay, so you had that end state. He has the building. He has the 2 successful companies. He's a well-known individual, and now he's back to square one because half of his revenue was cut basically March 1st. Now what do? You got 50 employees. What do you do with 25 of them? And so the last 6-8 months has been that that journey of going back to where you began, because you have that end state in mind. Okay, this is what success looks like. I'm gonna have this, this, and this. Well, just because you have those things doesn't mean that you can't go back to the beginning, can't go back to where you came from, and not even reinvent, right? But take the information you have available that day and move out with it and be effective with it in an ever-changing environment. This year has, in some ways, leveled the playing field in the fact that we've all struggled. All businesses have had to adapt kind of all at the same time to similar information. But entrepreneurship is a struggle every day. It was a struggle before 2020. It was a struggle before then. You know, entrepreneurial or entrepreneurship, what do you want to call it, has only gotten sexy or woke in the last, 5, 7 years. 10 years ago, entrepreneurship was just this long word that people couldn't spell.
Yeah.
And it just meant, you work for yourself, right? We don't even use the word sole proprietor. There's nothing sexy about sole proprietorship or your LLC. No, everyone wants to be an influencer and an entrepreneur. And it's like, what does that really mean? What is the grind? And there's that grind. Well, no, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Do you actually do the thing every day? Or do you just talk about the struggles you're on?
We're just getting started. Let's take a quick break and come back for more with Dan and Andy. This episode of YG Roundtable is built by Max Weiss and is sponsored by Health Payment Systems.
Max Weiss is a company that does it right the first time. A company that sets the curve in excellence. Rolled, curved, formed, forged, fabricated. A company that delivers on time. A company that drives innovation forward. A company that has satisfied customers for over 75 years. Anything metal, Max Weiss Company. Call or visit us online to learn more about Max Weiss Company.
For more than 80% of families, today's medical billing practices are confusing. At HPS, our goal is to improve the healthcare experience for the patient by making medical bill payments less stressful. In Wisconsin, that's all made possible by our comprehensive independent healthcare provider network. We simplify billing and lower costs for everyone involved in healthcare and offer various ways for individuals to pay without breaking the bank.
Well, and what's frustrating to many people when they start their own thing is they don't do what they do every day. They have to do all this other stuff that they never thought they had to sign up for, but they have to run their own business. And I think kind of what you said before, there's no such thing as an arrival, right? It doesn't get easier ever for the right type of person, which leads to my next question. Okay, is entrepreneurialism for everyone? Can everyone be an entrepreneur, or does it take a certain type of person to sign up and thrive in this environment?
Yeah, I don't think everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur. I've worked with people that are just comfortable doing their job day in, clock in, then be done with it and collect a paycheck. Like, they're fine with that, which is fine. But I don't think everybody's built to be an entrepreneur. I mean, there's times where, like, surprise, surprise, 2020 happened. Can you live without a paycheck for 6 to 9 months?
Yeah.
I mean, that hurts, you know? So, and those are the things as an entrepreneur, it's like, well, I have to take care of 25 employees, so I guess I don't get paid, but they have to.
Yeah.
And then you have to think, well, how do we keep this going? How do we keep generating revenue? How do we keep generating profits? How do we shift? Pivot has been the huge word, right? So, it takes a unique person. And you could be an entrepreneur working for a company and just killing it, but you're probably bored to tears in your job. And that's where I was. I would accelerate, get bored, parallel, no room to grow, go on to the next company. Same thing.
So we've established the idea that even if you go start your own thing and it's successful, it's never consistent. Competitors pop up, viruses pop up. So let's now get to the point where someone's frustrated in corporate America or they're thinking about starting their own thing. What are some of the traits that you look for when you hear someone's going to start their own thing? What do you think makes someone innately an entrepreneur?
When it comes down to what is it you do? What are you physically doing? I joke all the time that I love being an entrepreneur and I hate being a business owner. I love the front end. I like doing the thing, but the accounting, the taxes, the liabilities, the workers' comp, the lawyers, it's one of those, you don't want to have an insurance guy, a banker, or a lawyer until you need all three. And I hate that end of things. And I think you have to be good at one or the other and want to do one or the other. There are some people that say, hey, I want to run a business. I want to do all the day-to-day tasks and responsibilities. I want to be part of this industry or this initiative that I'm really strong about. There's other people that are like, I want to run a business, and maybe franchise is a better choice. You have to be so passionate about your craft, you're willing to do it for free every day and work 80, 100 hours for nothing just to be able to do what you want to do every day, or you have to love the back end and have to want to hire employees and train and coach and mentor. I've talked to people before, they say, well, I just want to kind of clock in and clock out. I want to have the freedom. They want all these ancillary benefits of being a business owner, but they don't want to work.
Yeah.
That is the biggest sign for me to say, okay, you got to reevaluate. When you become a small business owner, you're going to work harder and longer than you've ever worked before. Whether that means it's physically doing the thing or mentally having to make a lot of the decisions. If you think I'm just going to have this cookie cutter thing and it's going to run itself and you're just going to invest some money, go play the stock market game. You can do that all day and sit in your cushy office. And that, again, no shame in that, but you have to want to work.
Which comes back to one of the things I'm really passionate about, because we're all signing up for 80 hours a week or whatever it might be. You better really love it. So if you were coaching someone that's thinking about jumping, they were good at one thing but love something else, would you drive them down the loving it path, or would you help them stay down the I'm proficient at it path?
The love path, 100%. Because I did things like Andy said, the fulfillment in the back end, and it just gives me a headache, and it's annoying, and it's just stressful. It's not fun to me.
Yeah.
And when you love what you do, it's automatically fun. You don't know you're working 80 hours a week. You don't know, you're just doing it, you're in it, and you love it. Like for me, I love to mow my yard. It gives me peace.
Yeah.
It calms me down. But the same thing as running, my business. I love to run my business.
Yeah.
But if I had to sit down and do P&Ls all day long, I would just be like, you know what? I'm going to go get a job, clock in and clock out, where I don't have to think or do anything.
Yeah.
So loving what you do is, and it's beyond like taking a hobby or passion that you're good at. You really have to love what you do.
One of the things I think many people don't think about before they start is they can do one or the other, and just that, and hire out the other side. If you don't like the process, there are people on the planet that love doing the thing. I'm looking at one right now. Hey, he loves to do the thing.
Whatever it is.
So that helps.
I love problems. I'm one of those people that loves problems. I love the operations end of side. I don't, whatever it is. So there's a couple businesses I run and I love the ops part. If you said, hey, you got to sit in your office for the next 12 hours and look at Excel documents and P&L and look for trends and then make decisions and recommendations for the next 30, 60, 90 days. Oh, great. Turn off my email, turn off my phone. I am in heaven, right? But then if it's, well, we have to go do sales, we have to do marketing, we have to do this. And I will do it, but I'm not in love with it. And so being in love with something, some part of it, that's the thing. And what gets you excited? That's where I go back to. What do I talk about and think about and read about when I don't have to? And that's the path I'm on. It's one of those like, yeah, I had to do this, or I get to do this. Or you can train your brain to want to do things and find fulfillment in it. And you got to find fulfillment in all of it. As much as you don't like the P&Ls, you still have to do it. All right, I have to have my monthly accounting meeting, because if I don't know where my money is at each month, I'm probably already dead in the water.
Yeah, right.
So you have to, right? You have to be disciplined. We didn't even talk about that. Being an entrepreneur, a successful one, takes discipline. Well, that means just waking up early, staying up late, and not just being busy. It's easy to be busy. Anybody can be busy.
That's a good point.
You got to be productive. If I didn't have a calendar and a team of people making sure I was doing the right thing at the right time, I wouldn't be where I'm at, because I recognize as an entrepreneur, I'm a dreamer, I'm a creator, all those things, but I also have to be a doer. I have to get down and do the work.
So being passionate, we've identified that. But when he said discipline, you lit up. Is that another thing you would look for in a successful entrepreneur, someone that's thinking about making the jump?
For sure, yeah. I think people take, the corporate gig or wherever they're working as, I'm just going to duplicate this exact thing. But it's like, when I became an entrepreneur, I didn't realize how much time I wasted at the office.
Yeah.
And I was just like, calculating it from the time I came in, and I'm just like, I literally did nothing from 8 until noon. And then I went to lunch, and that's where I rocked out all my stuff. And I'm like, I did all this stuff in 3 hours because it made sense, because I was in meetings, and then we had meetings for the sake of meetings, and then you have all this, you got to have this motivational speaker and listen to them and give you tips that they've never sat down to do your job. So it's like, being disciplined is, okay, you get down to the nitty gritty. Like, my time, I only have 24 hours and the clock's ticking. So if we're gonna have a meeting, it better mean something. Otherwise I'm out. And I'm the same way. I live and die by the calendar. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist.
I've said it before in our old business. If it's not on the calendar, the trucks don't move.
Yeah.
If I saw a truck moving and there wasn't, like my brain is like, this doesn't compute.
Yeah.
The truck can't be moving. It's not on the calendar. And then people look at me like I'm nuts. And then all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, they'd be like, well, we don't know what's going on because it's not on the calendar. I'm like, oh, you noticed that too. Right? And I knew that because at one point we didn't have that process. We didn't have that system. It was my brother and I running a junk removal company out of the backyard. It was all in my head. Well, eventually, that didn't compute. That was not repeatable. The thing is with entrepreneurship, you said it earlier with Stephen Covey, starting with the end state in mind. You have to determine not just, okay, I'm going to have a business, but what does that look like? What do you, the CEO, president, whatever, do all day? Because let's say it takes 100 tasks a day to run a successful business. Day one, you're doing 100 things a day, whatever that is. If you have a partner, now you're down to 50. My goal from this time we started our business was get down to 10 things, and then from those 10 things, get down to 2 or 3 things. And of those 2 or 3 things, one of them is being the CEO or president of the company. So now there's only 1 or 2 things I can do each day that I'm not required to do to move the business forward. And those other 97, 98 things are taken care of by somebody else. Sometimes it's a process already implemented. Sometimes it's an employee. It's a subcontractor. You got rid of the problem, right? You have to work yourself out of a job if you want to grow a business. If you just want to do the thing all day and make pottery, right? And just make pottery, that's all you want to do. Okay, just go make pottery. But you have to have someone to sell it, someone to market it, someone to run the store, someone to sell the classes, someone to shoot the videos. All those are the things, and that's all you're going to do. And there's no shame in that.
Well, and to me, that's the entrepreneur's finish line. When you can become an owner and not an owner-operator, you've really done something special, right? Once you get to that point.
Or you're the operator. Let's go back.
Sure.
You like making pottery, and you just want to make all the pottery in the world you want to make. Sometimes, eventually, an investor is going to come in and say, okay, you just make pottery. We're going to figure everything else out. And then you're just, all day, you're at a pottery wheel. All you're doing is making pottery, and you know all your bills are paid. Because you're doing that one thing that you absolutely love.
So we've talked about what it looks like when it's done. Like, hey, I've launched a business, and this is what the life is like. Because I think it's important for people to understand what that is. We also identified 2 traits of successful entrepreneurs, right? That they're disciplined and that they're passionate about what they're doing every day. Something that's unique now that didn't exist when I was younger. A lot of things didn't exist when I was younger. But when I was younger, the concept of a side hustle didn't exist. And it's almost a half step. If you're in a corporate job right now, there's nothing to say you couldn't have a side hustle that lets you test the waters. So were you flirting with side hustles before you left corporate America?
No. It was more of a secretive type thing way back then too, because it was, they'd monitor our LinkedIn and all this stuff. So it's like you had to legit do everything on the side, under the radar type thing. So that's when I said I jumped ship, I literally it was a surprise to everybody else. But today it's just that, just that easy. I think it's okay to have a side gig if you're working your corporate gig, and I don't think as long as it doesn't interfere, I think that's the biggest thing that corporate America worries about is, does it interfere? Or any business,
But I think it's a half step someone could take to their full-time gig. So if someone's watching and they have a side hustle, what does a successful side hustle look like today in relation to potentially doing it sometime in the future and just that? So what would you look for in a successful side hustle today?
Consistency. You're getting paid on the regular. That's definitely a successful side hustle. I don't care if it's $5 a month that you're making. If you're making $5 a month on the regular, you can duplicate that. You can scale it. So then you know it's working. So what does it take to get to that next level? And that's where I see a successful side hustle. If it's you're losing money and you're sticking money in all the time, or it's just not working.
Right.
So it's reevaluate or try something else.
So you got something maybe that's kicking off revenue. What else would you look for in a successful side hustle?
I'll take it one step further. I think when it comes, for me at least, when it comes to alignment of what we call work, this thing that we do that's not personal, it's professional in nature, I break it into 3 categories. You get your sustainable career. That's the thing that pays bills. It is cash flow positive and it allows you to live the life you want to live. Then you have your side hustle, and right to your point, you can't lose money. The difference between a side hustle and a hobby is a side hustle has 2 things. It has revenue and hopefully has a P&L. It has you can at least say, okay, I made $5 this month, right? And I put in 100 hours, right? So I'm worth, right, a fraction of a penny per hour. But you generated revenue and you can say, hey, here's the cost benefit, or I invest in this, or I made these connections. Your side hustle can be going to college, whatever that thing is at different points in your life, right? Because you're investing in yourself in some capacity. And then the third bucket is your passion project. And the passion project will always cost you money, but you do it because you love it. I'll go back to that tennis analogy, right? He loved playing tennis. That's a passion project. Sometimes you take that passion project and turn it into a side hustle. Okay, now you're maybe teaching some people on the side and everything's good. But as soon as it becomes your sustainable career, like, hold on, I don't want it. The love is gone. So understanding what you do and where it fits in the categories, and then look at that in your life. So for example, I have a sustainable career, an environmental consulting company. I love doing it, and that's the thing that pays the bills. This, YGTV and Young Guns, it's a side hustle. We generate revenue. We have to put work into it, but I enjoy doing it. And I can look month over month, I'm growing as an individual. My passion project is coaching veterans. I've never made $1 coaching a veteran, but I will always give veteran and entrepreneurs time. But all three of them align. The smarter I am at this, the better I become with Young Guns and the better business owner I become. They align together. But at a time, about 2 years ago, I wanted to do full-time consulting. I dabbled with it for about 90 days and I said, nope, this isn't for me. It was no longer fun once I applied revenue to it. Once I wanted to get paid to be a consultant, like the fun stopped almost immediately. And then I took a break from doing it. So you have to test to see if you want it. Like you said, the side hustle is a stepping stone, but do it in moderation. All of a sudden, if you're not having fun and or it's not making money, just kind of leave it where it's at. Enjoy what it is.
So let's say you're having fun and you're making money with your side hustle. How do you evaluate your side hustle to potentially be the career and the business that you launch? What would you tell someone that's thinking about making that jump from side hustle to small business?
Well, if you're dreaming about your side hustle and working on it nights, weekends when you're not working and you're putting more effort into that, that's when it's time to jump. And revenue-wise, if it's bringing in more than your current check, I mean, that's no brainer. But it's when you start to live and breathe and think about your side hustle more and more and more, you're switching that mindset to now you're transitioning to I'm launching to when I fire the company that I'm working for and I'm going to hire myself full time. And that's when the transition comes in, when you're living it and thinking it and dreaming it.
The revenue has to be repeatable.
It has to be.
So one of three things. Either A, you can charge more for what you're doing and you can live off that. B, you can acquire more customers. So if you have 5 customers in your side hustle and those are the only 5 you can get, that's one thing. But if you can take 5 to 50 without adding employees, then you're right. That kind of goes with that you can charge more or you have more time and bandwidth. Or the third thing is it repeatable? Can I train somebody else to do this? Teach them, mentor them to do what I'm doing while overseeing it. If you can do one of those 3 things, then you have something that is tangible to build a business around. If this is something you kind of like doing, you made a little bit of money on it, you got to go one of those 3 courses of action and think about that.
But it feels good. Things are going the right way. Everything's going to launch. Here we go. People freeze when it gets to the money part. If they're not sitting on $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 or have a bank line of credit or whatever it might be, but people do freeze. That's a stopping point. What would you tell someone if everything looks great, but the money?
At that point, you've done all the hard work. So it's now it's go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it's like why stop there? Like, that's where you need to jump. That's where you need to jump, like, hardcore 100% all in, because the money's going to come. If you flip it and you go into business because you want to make money, you're going to fail over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But don't freeze just because, like, so you might not pay yourself every week like you did at your job or every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But you might be able to pay yourself at the end of the month a pretty good bonus. Like, those things happen and you have control of that.
Yeah, ramen's good, right?
The thing is, so I always talk about the hustle, the struggle, the grind. You've done the hard part, in my opinion, the hustle. The struggle is you're on the top of the mountaintop. You look over and you're like, I don't know what's on the other side, right? Because the hustle is you're going up the mountain, you kind of have an idea, that's where I want to go. And then you get to that moment of, I have to take the jump. I don't have the money. Well, are you going to keep going up this mountain in perpetuity? Or are you going to make the turn and go over it and like, okay, now I've peaked. I can't do both. I can't have the job and the love of a side. Okay, now I'm going to go. And once you get over that hump, you look down, it is foggy. You don't know what that looks like as you're kind of on that grind, but you put all the work into it. It's that moment, that that moment of struggle, and it's almost always in your head, because you might be able to start a business with $1. It might take me $100 and takes him $10,000. It's just a number. What's the right number? When's the right time?
I started
good.
Yeah, I started my business with $300 on a computer. So
So you had the computer. That was the difference, right?
the computer was a big difference. I mean, if I had to buy the computer, then it'd be like, all right, then a couple more bucks I have to spend. But you don't want to know what's beyond the fog.
Oh, you'll never take the plunge.
You'll never take the plunge. Never take.
When people are like, well, would you do it again? No, of course not.
Because when you start, you have this path and this roadmap, like this is how it's all going to align, and it doesn't at all. And that's the best part. That's what makes it fun, because you're like, sweet.
No one told me about the dragon. That wasn't on my map.
took a
Dragon,
different turn. Sweet.
Coronavirus, what?
Yeah.
So I want to flash back just for a second, because you lived this life, and I'm sure that you lived this life as well. Do you remember walking out of the corporate office? Because we're talking about this sweet time, right? When good things happen, like one of the most satisfactory things about starting your own business. I would contend for myself, after 22 years in the radio business, the sweetest part of this journey so far was making the decision to walk out, and then literally walking out of the building knowing I'm going to take my life in my own hands. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, I do. I remember it was a really hot day too, and it was like, it felt like, you know how you get a half day at work and then you get to walk out and you know, it's like, oh, beautiful day or whatever. That's how it felt. It was just like awesome. Or even when like you go on vacation or whatever, it's that great feeling. And then I got in the car and I was like, holy, I'm really doing this.
Yeah, this is real now.
And I'm driving home and I'm like, did I make the right decision? Did I do this? I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And then you start, you know, checking email and you get a call and all of a sudden that's you, that's your business. Oh, I don't have the rest of the day off. My business just started today.
Yep.
So
I had a corporate vehicle, so I had to get picked up from work on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
That was, all right then, here we go. But that was it. As soon as you said that, I'm thinking, when Wednesday night, like it was yesterday. I can remember the exact moment where like, okay, I don't have a job anymore. And now I'm doing the next thing. And it was just like that. And it wasn't, you know, oh, whatever. It was just, all right, I guess I got to do the thing now. Let's go do it. And you don't know what it is. You just know one foot in front of the other.
That shows incredible restraint. I'm actually quite proud of you for not dropping an F-bomb there. I'm impressed.
This is a classy establishment.
It is a classy show. This is a classy show. I want to follow up on one other thing, though. Maybe you have. I haven't. I know that you've signed incredibly big banknotes before.
Oh, yeah.
Does that to me, that sounds terrifying. What does that feel like to scratch a giant loan like that under your business's name? Because that takes risk and responsibility to a whole new level.
Yeah, I'm probably reckless in that regard. I remember this was a couple years ago. I had spent $1.5 million in a week. And my mom said, she goes, let's never do that again. I was like, no, I should do that at least once a year. Right? But I bought a building and also signed a loan for a bunch of franchises at the time. And she's like, you spent $1.5 million this week. I'm like, yeah, I did. Didn't think twice about it, Ma. Yeah. And she, to this day, was like, that was a really rough week for me. And I was like, well, what does it matter? I got the rest of my life to pay it back. I have all this opportunity. I got to that point. I remember when we went to go sign the loan for our building, which was this huge, you know, been looking at for 10 years. I've been looking for a building. Finally found the building, did all the things, signed it. We got 2 keys. I gave one to my brother. I put one in my pocket. I went right back to work. You know, he went with one of our employees right to the building and opened it up, and they went exploring in the building that night. And I was like, oh, my part is done. I have to go make some money now. I got bills to pay. I don't celebrate success. And I look at signing for a big loan, that's a success. We got here, now we got to go earn it. You didn't earn it. Just because you can sign for a bunch of debt doesn't mean you earned it. You didn't earn anything yet. Now you got to make that go make money. So for me, that excites me. But not in a, what are we going to do? Like, okay, now I have the tools and abilities to do the next thing.
Just like starting a side hustle is different now than it used to be, starting a business is different now than it used to be. As you mentioned, you started your business with $300 and a computer. If you're starting your own thing, what else do you need besides that to start your own business?
I mean, other than a phone, I mean, I think you can literally start anything.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so much opportunity out there. So you don't need a lot, right? And even back in the day, like, you know, you could spend $40,000-$50,000 on a website. You know, now it's like you can do it yourself. You know, do you even need a website, right? So it's like you don't need a lot to start with. And I think people get the misconception that, you know, back when I started things, $10,000 was the number. You needed $10,000 to start your business. You needed, like, that was the number. And I was just like, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. There's no way I'm going to have $10,000 to just use somewhere.
Yeah.
So that was my mindset so long. And then finally I was just like, I don't need $10,000. I got a computer and a phone at my job, and that's all I use. I can do the same thing at home.
So people thinking that they need a lot of money to start, and that stops them. Another thing that I know for a fact stops people that want to make the jump, and I've heard them say it, boy, I'd love to do what you do, but I don't think I can sell. I don't want to sell. So now you've started your thing, now it's time to grow. What would you tell someone that thinks they're afraid of selling?
I hate selling, but it's a necessary mean. Like I don't like going out and selling. So I've never looked at it as selling. I look at it as, I'll make the argument, the other thing you need is a product or a service. A lot of people forget that, especially in today's day and age. Well, what do you do? Well, I do marketing. Well, what is it? Well, I do marketing. Pay me to do marketing. Well, what does that mean? Do you create the content? Do you do consulting? You have to have a SKU, right? There's something there. But when it comes to selling, I grew up with, I'm a fourth generation entrepreneur. And so I grew up watching my grandfather and my father sell, essentially. But I also grew up with this mindset that salespeople were bad people. There's this mindset, or you go to networking events, like, oh, I'm a salesperson, right? There's a negative connotation there. But obviously, salespeople, they're doing a job. They're doing something that's necessary within the business. So I've never looked at it as selling. I look at it as I am always consulting. I have a product or service available that you may or may not need. I'm going to make you aware of it, and then you're going to give me feedback. And through our conversation, I will deduce whether or not you need my product or service. And now you're not selling, you're just informing people. And the best is when people inform you that they need you more than you need them.
Yeah.
If you go into the mindset, this scarcity mindset that I have to, you're always going to be chasing sales. If you go with an abundance mindset that says, everybody or this section of people need what I have to inform them. Now you're just giving information, and they'll start, and the sales, the transactions start to occur.
So I know this is candy for you. We're talking sales and marketing now. Someone says, man, I really don't want to sell for a living. How would you coach them through that?
It's so different when it's your own business. You're not really selling when it's your own business, because you're just so passionate about what you're talking about and what you do. So when I was in corporate America, I had to sell. I had to build my own pipeline, but all I wanted to do was get my bonus at the end of the quarter. So that was the sell. When I started my own business, it was more like, well, what do you need and how can I help you? Because I have these tools. I have all this experience. I have all this knowledge. I can bring you 10, 15 years ahead of the game that you don't have to figure out or do. I can do it all for you. And that was the sell. I wasn't like forcefully trying to cram anything down their throat. I'm like, how can I help you because I have these skills to deliver?
Sales, for me, was solved when I figured out how to network. And I figured out how to network thanks to the Brookfield Chamber of Commerce, shout out, when they taught me, listen, it's about how can I help you? It's not about what I have to sell. And if someone was starting out right now, what I would tell them is, know what your SKU is, make sure people can find you, and then go talk to as many people as possible, which may or may not include selling.
And there's nothing wrong with disqualifying a lead, a person, a prospect, whatever the goal is. My goal in the conversation is to solve problems. Now, if I have a product or service that solves their problem, good. If I don't, I have somebody in my network or Rolodex, whatever, like to send it. And if I don't have that person, I'm gonna go find it, right? Because what do I have? Maybe I have some bandwidth. Maybe I can do some research along the way. I've had people reach out, hey, do you do this? No, but that sounds interesting enough. I'll put a half an hour of time to dig into it. We have Google these days. If you can't find an answer on Google within 10 minutes, right, at least a number to call. I have gone down some weird roads calling people, and all of a sudden you get someone, they're like, how did you get my number? And you're like, well, this is the problem I have. They're like, oh yeah, we can solve that. And they're like, where did you go? And you kind of, the bouncy ball, and so, someone that wants to get a hold of, I got a business card one time with a website that didn't work, and the guy, I left 4 or 5 voicemails for the guy. And then finally found out it was his old number. He doesn't go to his office but once a month because he doesn't have to. Well, I finally got into it. I've done over $250,000 of business with this individual, and he didn't even want to be found. But I kept asking the question, how do I solve this problem that I have or somebody else has? Now we're great associates, but it's because I took on something, and when I mean done over $250,000, we haven't exchanged any goods and services. We've sent each other all this work because he does something and I do something, and they don't really compete. They complement each other, but they don't compete.
So people think they don't want to sell. That's a big misconception. And when it's their own thing, selling isn't as hard. The other thing, networking being solved with how can I help you? I want to get your opinion on this because of the businesses, plural, that you run. Some people will say, oh, don't give away what you do. Be really protective of what you do and wait till they pay you to give them the good stuff. I don't look at it that way. How do you look at that concept of you're meeting with someone and you want to help them? Are you open and giving about that? Is that the way that you look at it too?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, there's things that I've come across that like we don't do, or don't want to do. Like I don't want to be a marketing analyst company. I don't want to do SWOT analysis all day long, but I know people that will. I know companies that will. I'll gladly give them that sort of business. So for me, I mean, I think people equate value, high dollar amount. I don't want to give away all my secrets.
Right.
Well, there's a way that you can portray those secrets to the point where they're like, okay, I definitely need more of what you're talking about.
Right.
So it's a way of, instead of giving up all the goods, right? It's like you date somebody. You're not marrying them right away. You're dating them. So, it's kind of like a little give and take. Yeah. But we've done it in the beginning too, where we were just like, you need to do all this, and then they started Googling away, and then they put all these Band-Aids on, and we were like, well, we told you the end result would happen if you didn't do what we said, but you tried to figure it out on your own. So, I mean, there's good and bad to that, but I mean, for me, it's like, you know what, they'll come back. I mean, we've worked with a company for years that try to figure it out on their own, and they just come back, and they're like, okay, finally, we surrender.
It's funny that you say dating because you have a very colorful analogy about dating that you can't say on the show because this is a classy establishment, but what would you add to that?
Well, it's flirting, dating, procreating.
Okay.
It is the 3 stages of networking. But in that, this is simple. Like let's look at what Simon Sinek talks about, right? The what, the how, the why. All day you can tell people what you do and what they should do. Right? I can sit back and say, these are all the things that you can do or should do in your facility to be more environmentally sound. I will give you all the answers to the test. But how you do it, you can go figure it out on your own. And why you're doing it, that really proprietary information, you may never even need to know, but that's the good stuff. Same with marketing. You can say, yeah, this is what you should do. You should do this, you should increase your SEO. And here's a great website. And after about 10 minutes of them looking at this website, like, I don't even know half these words. Okay, got it. I'm going to hire you to do my SEO or run my Google AdWords or write the copy on Facebook. You can tell them all the things. This is what you need to do. Hey, you're getting terrible engagement on your Facebook, so these are the 3 things you should do and what you should do. But if they don't understand how to do it effectively and efficiently and why they're doing it, you have to understand the why so it's repeatable, because as we know with algorithms and marketing, it's constantly changing. And if you just know what to do and kind of flirt with how to do it and never learn the why, you'll always have to pay a guy like him to do it. So you might as well just pay him up front or take the time to understand the why. But now if you're spending all that time and energy in marketing, whether it's yours or you're hiring people out, well, there's a cost associated with that. If I'm spending 10 hours a week on marketing, right, 40 hours a month, how many dollars am I spending?
That's your time.
That's my time. Can I go generate more revenue doing the thing that I do? Am I worth $20 an hour? $200 an hour or $500 an hour? What am I worth to my organization? Start there if you're the business owner, the CEO, or the department. That's why you sub out certain things.
Yeah.
That's why you get lawyers. That's why lawyers are expensive, because they can save you thousands of dollars, right? I tell people all the time, as a business owner, make 10,000 $1 mistake, because otherwise you're going to make one $10,000 mistake. I'd rather learn 10,000 lessons cheap than that one really expensive lesson. And you will. You'll make that $10,000, and then you just keep adding zeros. Eventually, it's a $100,000 lesson. You'll make that lesson, but make all the cheap lessons you can. You think you can do it better? Okay, go. And there's some things you will be able to do better, and there's some things you won't. So try it, but then go back to the person that does it best if it's something you don't, either A, you're not good at, or B, you don't want to be good at it.
So we've talked now about time management, sales, networking, understanding your product, making the leap and getting out there. We're almost out of time for the episode. Someone's thinking about making the jump. They want to be successful and grow their business. Looking back on the things that you've learned and the people that you've coached, what haven't we talked about that someone would need to know before they either start or get really serious about their entrepreneurial journey?
I would say definitely outsource things quick, because there's a point where you got to fulfill the actual obligations that you sold and people bought into. So I would say the things that, coming back, fulfill that for sure, and learn to say no. I think starting your own business, you want to say yes to everything. Like, I want to get paid. But it's like, hey, do I want a $100,000 contract, but it's $1 million headache? No way. So I would say learn to say no right away in the beginning. Stand your ground, know your worth, know your value as well, what you bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. You talk about something that people get surprised about is everything looks great until you sell something. And then what happens is, did I price it high enough to not be mad at it? Because people may buy it, but then to fulfill what they've sold might be such a frustration that it's not scalable, or it's too much time, or suddenly you're out of business because you're full. So going along with that, you're probably not charging enough. Like, that's just a blanket rule, right? Almost nobody comes out of the gate charging as much as they could or should. Did that happen to you when you started?
Yeah, it definitely did. Because I was going based upon what my salary was.
Right.
And then I'm thinking, well, if somebody hires me, okay, I'll just, as long as I'm making my salary, not realizing everything else that comes along with that. Now that I'm not a part of corporate, now I'm an LLC. So I learned that, but I really know my stuff too. So they're gonna pay for it as well. Not being arrogant or cocky, but it's just like, no, I mean, I told you more in 5 minutes than all these companies you researched for 5 months. So, okay, there's my value add. But I didn't also want to get into a pricing war either with other competitors in the industry. I wanted to be like, listen, we're, not the cheapest, but we know what we're doing and we deliver on what we do. Like, that was my mindset the whole time, was going in, was showcasing that value.
You talked about your salary. The phrase that sticks with me is, don't price based on your pocketbook. Price based on what it's worth to the client that you're selling it to. That way you'll make sure that it's not what you think is expensive is, it's what the client values the work at. So final thoughts about entrepreneurship, growing something from I'm working here to running my own business that maybe we haven't touched on yet.
Collect data from the first phone call you make. Figure it out. Figure out if it takes you 2 phone calls, 20 phone calls, or 200 phone calls for the next thing to happen. Figure out how long it takes you to do this, that, and the other thing. Because someday you're going to look back and be like, well, how did I get where I'm at? And you're just guessing. So write it down. The hours invested, the calls made, the networking events attended. Figure this all out, because someday you're going to want to look back and get this historic data, and then you have to start at that point, and then you got to think forward. So the one thing we say, we didn't even write down customers' names. We would just go do jobs that gave us cash. Problem solved, right? And then about 6 months into our business, we're like, well, where is our sales coming from? So we had to go back to checks and look at zip codes. Not very repeatable process. So from the day that you're like, hold on, this might be something, stop then, start collecting data. There's nothing sexy or exciting about it. But if you can spend 10 minutes a day collecting the data of what you did or didn't do and just track it, that will, someday you're gonna look back and say, wow, that was the smartest thing I did.
Right now, there's someone watching this episode that learned enough to make the jump. So thank you for sharing today, Dan. Andy, thanks for coming on the show.
Appreciate it.
No problem, thank you.
Thanks to Dan and Andy for sitting down on YG Roundtable, built by Max Weiss and sponsored by Health Payment Systems on the set here at Serendipity Labs. YG Roundtable, built by Max Weiss, is YG TV's place to explore issues facing the business community and learn from subject matter experts who stand out in their field. If you've got an idea for an episode or you'd like to appear as a panelist, drop us a note on our website, younggunsmovement.com. And for more great content shaking up the business industry, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm your host, Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. A big thanks to our panel of Dan Marx and Andy Weins. See you next time.